In a bustling market town, morning stretched itself awake. Shutters lifted, pots clinked, and narrow lanes filled with footsteps and friendly bargaining. In the shade of a neem tree sat a young man named Theo, tall, strong, and outwardly blessed with health, yet curiously unmoored inside, as if some quiet thief had stolen his will. While others sorted grain or rolled open shop fronts, Theo drifted, dreaming of riches that would arrive unearned, like rain on a roof he had never built. Neighbors pitied him and sometimes offered food. He received their kindness without much thought, the way a pond receives leaves in autumn. That morning, a prosperous merchant, grateful for a bountiful year, chose to distribute fresh milk to the needy. Theo joined the line, eager as anyone, and soon cradled a small pot of warm, fragrant milk. At home, his father already in the fields, firewood lay stacked, a stove ready, and 2 pieces of bread waited on the table like modest companions. Theo boiled the milk, listened to its soft bubbling, and ate. He placed the rest beside his bed, intending to save it, but ease drew him down like a lullaby, and he reclined, eyes on the pot, mind on a future that cost nothing. As the light thinned into late morning, a temple bell sounded far off, and an elderly woman paused outside Theo's doorway, balancing a basket of herbs. She peered in with the kind of glance life gives after many seasons, gentle, unsentimental. "Warm milk is good fuel," she murmured, not unkindly, "but fuel needs a fire." Then, she continued down the lane. Theo barely noticed. In his head, tomorrow's milk had already thickened into cheese. He would sell it in the market, buy a hen, gather eggs, hatch chicks, and by simple arithmetic of comforts multiplying own a poultry farm. From poultry he would climb to cattle, from cattle to a dairy, from a dairy to glittering purchases and powerful customers. He saw doors opening without hinges, smiling faces without demands. He saw himself rich, admired, and like a mirage always just one wish away from rest. Overhead, a breeze lifted the curtain. Theo's mind leapt again. Jewelry shops, kingly buyers, a splendid marriage, a handsome son. If that boy became lazy, here, Theo felt a moral heat. He would correct him sternly, no, decisively with a stick, and the very notion of sloth would vanish under the lesson. In this hot gust of fantasy, Theo's hand, searching for conviction, snatched a stick and swung it through the air. The arc felt righteous, definite, almost wise, until wood met clay. The pot toppled. Milk leapt and flashed across the floor, a bright comet of loss. Silence arrived after the splash, the kind that teaches without words. Theo stared at the puddle. The stick in his hand transformed into something small and foolish. He cleaned the mess slowly. Outside, the day continued. Hammers, footsteps, the low hum of living. The bell rang again from the temple, softer this time. A neighbor's father, stooped yet steady, passed by, carrying tools. He had the look of someone who knows his field won't weed itself, and that prayer, while powerful, blooms best beside honest work. Theo felt a flicker of heat in his chest, embarrassment or awakening he could not yet say. A teacher might have put it simply, thoughts are seeds, but hands are soil. Without the tending, visions dry out. Theo did not yet have those words. He only had a stain on the floor, and a story his actions had rewritten. Somewhere inside him, a small door unlatched, but it did not swing open. Not yet. Theo did not yet know the taste of labor. Each dawn broke like an invitation, yet he lay still, waiting for fortune to arrive dressed as charity. That day, after the pot had broken and the floor bore the stain of wasted milk, he wandered into the village lanes once more. The air was thick with smoke from cooking fires, with the rhythm of hand mills grinding grain, with the lowing of cattle guided to pasture. Every sound announced that life was moving forward, pulled by effort like a cart by oxen. Theo's feet carried him past fields, where farmers bent under the sun, faces shining with both sweat and resolve. He envied their harvest but did not envy the labor that bore it. At the well, 2 women drew water. They laughed as they worked, trading small jokes that made the heavy rope seem lighter. One noticed Theo and said, half kindly, half sharply, "Dreams cannot be poured into a cup, boy. They must be drawn up, bucket by bucket." Theo turned away, unsettled. Her words clung to him like the dust on his sandals. As the sun climbed, Theo returned home, tired though he had done nothing. He found his father resting briefly from the fields. The older man's hands were rough, his shoulders bowed from years of toil, yet his eyes still held a clear flame. He glanced at the stain on the floor where the milk had spilled, then looked at Theo, saying nothing. Silence can be heavier than scolding. Theo felt it like a stone on his chest. In that stillness, a faint voice rose within him, perhaps memory of the old woman who had passed his doorway, perhaps the echo of the women at the well. Fuel needs fire, buckets draw water, hands shape tomorrow. The phrases blurred, but together they formed a rhythm, a call to awaken. Outside, the temple bell sounded again. This time, Theo listened more closely. He imagined monks rising at dawn, chanting while the world still dreamed, their voices weaving strength into the morning. They too longed for freedom, but not through fantasies of sudden wealth. Their practice was patient, each breath a seed, each step a plow. Theo sat by the doorway until dusk, the village quieting into night. A child passed, chasing a firefly with laughter. An elder paused, touching his shoulder gently. "What we do," the elder said, "becomes who we are. If you sow only thoughts, you will harvest only shadows." Then he walked on, his back curved but his steps steady. For the first time, Theo felt the ground beneath him, not as a bed for idleness but as soil waiting. He did not yet rise to work, but something inside shifted. A faint crack in the shell of his laziness, a glimpse of the life that could be, if only he chose to meet the dawn with his hands as well as his dreams. Night carried with it a silence deeper than the day, broken only by the creak of crickets and the sigh of wind through bamboo shutters. Theo lay awake, not drifting into sweet illusions as before, but circling around the image of spilled milk, the bright splash, the wasted chance, the foolish swing of the stick. That small accident had become a mirror. In it he saw not just the loss of milk, but the countless days lost to waiting, the years that might dissolve if he continued to barter work for fantasy. At dawn, his father's footsteps woke him. The older man lifted his tools without complaint, shoulders bent yet steady, like a tree that bows to storm but never breaks. For a moment, Theo considered following, but shame tethered him. He watched his father disappear down the lane. Something stirred within. If not today, when? He stepped outside and found the temple courtyard already alive. Monks swept fallen leaves, each stroke of the broom as mindful as a prayer. A novice paused, smiled at Theo, and offered a small cup of water. "It is said," the boy murmured, "that even the Buddha began with a single step under the Bodhi tree." Theo drank slowly, letting the cool water slide through him like an unseen blessing. He realized, enlightenment was not magic, but the fruit of persistence, step after step, day after day. Later, as he wandered the market, he noticed how every stall carried the imprint of its owner's labor. The baker's bread smelled of sleepless dawns. The potter's bowls held the memory of patient spinning. The tailor's garments shimmered with hours of careful stitching. Nothing of value appeared by chance. All was coaxed into being by effort. Even generosity, the merchant's milk, the women's laughter at the well, was born from lives that had first worked, then shared. That evening, Theo sat with his father at the threshold of their modest home. He did not confess his shame, but he picked up the spare tool leaning against the wall. His fingers traced the worn handle, rough yet warm from use. The stars blinked awake above them. For once, Theo did not imagine riches falling from the sky. Instead, he saw a path beneath his feet, faint but steady. Perhaps tomorrow he would walk into the fields. Perhaps he would stumble, tire quickly, or fail to keep pace. That the seed of resolve had been planted, watered by milk spilled, words overheard, silences endured. If he tended it, if he rose again and again, it might one day bear fruit. The bell rang once more from the temple, echoing like a heartbeat across the village. Theo closed his eyes, not to dream of fortune, but to listen. Morning light filtered through the trees like threads of gold. Theo woke earlier than usual, the memory of the temple bell still steady in his chest. He stepped outside, before his father returned from the fields, breathing the cool air with a different awareness. Each inhale a gift, each exhale a small act of readiness. He found himself at the edge of the path where weeds grew wild. Without planning, he bent down, pulled a handful, and felt the soil yield beneath his fingers. The act was small, almost laughable, but it was more than he had done in many days. The neighbors, passing by, noticed him. Some smiled in surprise, others offered a few words of encouragement. One elderly man remarked, "The road is long, but the first step shortens it." Theo straightened, wiping his hands on his tunic, and for the first time their words did not sting. They felt like lanterns guiding him forward. Later that day, he carried water to the field where his father worked. The older man glanced at him, not speaking, yet his eyes softened. They labored side by side in silence. Sweat rolled down Theo's neck, the sun pressed hard. His muscles complained, yet beneath the discomfort lay a curious lightness, as if each strike of the hoe loosened not only earth but the knot around his heart. By evening, he was exhausted in a way he had never known, but it was a fullness rather than an emptiness. As he sat outside their home, he remembered the broken pot of milk. Once it had been a symbol of loss. Now it seemed almost like a teacher, showing him that dreams without action spill easily, while effort, though slow, gathers into substance. The temple bell sounded again, folding the day into quiet. Theo bowed his head, not in defeat but in gratitude for the lesson, for the labor, for the chance to begin again. He did not suddenly become rich, nor did all laziness vanish overnight, but something had shifted. He no longer waited for life to feed him. He had tasted the strength of his own hands, and that taste would draw him back to the field tomorrow, and the next day, until new seeds bore fruit. Perhaps he would stumble again. Perhaps the world would test his resolve. Yet in the rhythm of work and rest, in the echo of the bell and the silence of the soil, he sensed a truth deeper than fantasy. Our destiny is carved not from what we imagine, but from what we persistently do. The story closes, not with Theo's fortune made, but with his spirit turned toward effort, toward discipline, toward a path where even the smallest step is a prayer of becoming.